Alright everyone, so in this video here, I am going to be upgrading my Steam Deck storage. So the one I have is the 512 gig model, and I've said this before, that looking back, I kind of wish I got the base model and then upgrade the storage later on. Because now I'm basically taking the top end model that has 512 gigs of storage and upgrading to a terabyte. So yeah, looking back, I should have just got the cheap model, so that way I can use the money I saved to basically get the 1 terabyte. Because if you don't know about the Steam Deck, it doesn't matter which version of the Steam Deck you get. The actual hardware itself is all the same. The only difference is the type of storage. And if you get the top end model, which is what this is, you get this matte finish type of glass screen on it and a more premium case. But nonetheless, we're here now, and I'm going to go ahead and upgrade the storage. Now, there are a couple of things you actually want to do first. First and foremost, Valve actually recommends you to drain the battery down to like 25%. You actually don't want to open up a device with a built-in battery at full capacity. You actually want to drain the battery down for safety reasons. Not necessarily, part of it is for yourself, but it's also to help protect the device itself. So that's one of the reasons why. Also, you actually want to put the Steam Deck in what they call the battery storage mode. So what you do is you hold down the volume up button and then press the power button to turn it on. When you hear the beep, you let go of the buttons. It goes into the BIOS menu, and then you navigate over to the section where you will put in that mode. And what that does is it basically tells the hardware disable all button presses, including the power button, so that when you're working on it, you don't accidentally turn on the system. That's why they kind of want you to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything all set up, ready to go. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, one thing they actually do want you to use, or at least a recommendation, is actually use your case. So that's what I'm actually going to do. I'm actually going to lay my Steam Deck upside down on the other side so that I can work on it and not really worry about damaging like the control sticks or the screen or anything. It's actually being fully protected, staying flat, all that good stuff there. So I'm going to go ahead and take these screws out, and I'm just going to jump the screen to the next. Alright, so I got the screws out here. Just remember too that when it comes to the Steam Deck, you want to make sure that you put the outer screws back correctly. It's not that hard to remember. Just make sure the 2 inner ones, the 4 inner screws I mean, are the shorter screws, and the 4 screws on the outer edges here are the longer ones. And then after that, you basically take, like a little spudger, and pry this open. Alright, so I got it pried off enough that I can take the rest of it out. And there shouldn't be anything physically connected to the back portion. So you should be okay to take this off like so. Now that we got this taken apart here, if you're kind of curious how it looks like from the inside, there you go. Not much to it, it's just a piece of plastic. We gotta remove this thing here. You just want to roll it back so that you can gain access to this screw here. We got this screw right here, and we got one over here. So you just gotta make sure the fan cable here is not being pinched or anything when removing, and it's not. And yeah, it just lifts off like so. And of course right here is the SSD that we need. Now, it is recommended that you buy a new shield for the SSD because it acts like a it basically acts like a heatsink for the SSD. But I read online that you can actually just reuse this, and that's actually what I'm going to be doing. So what we're going to do now is actually remove this SSD. So we're going to go ahead and remove this SSD here. And here is the 1 terabyte version. Oh, look how tiny that thing is. But now, let's go ahead and put this thing back together. So you basically take the your little shield thing, put it back on, and kind of want to pull it in tight, seal it back up, and you're pretty much... Alright, so now when you do have it on correctly, it should look like that. So this is, you can reuse this. So unless you're that particular that you just want to just get a new one, you can, but it's not necessary. So now it's in reverse. So you take it, and remember, you want to put this at an angle about like a, I would say like a 30-ish type of degree. You don't want to put it in perpendicular with it, or you don't want to put it in flat. You kind of want this SSD on an angle, because then you just push it down. So now you're going to take your screw, and we're going to go in reverse now. So push it down till it lays flat and screw it back in. And just when it comes to screwing down things, you don't want to over tighten, especially if you're going into plastic. You just want to, you basically want to turn it until essentially, I don't want to say bottoms out, until, best way to describe it is once you start feeling resistance, that's kind of where you want to stop. So now, I'm going to take this shield and put this back on. And by the way, if you're kind of wondering about this, this doesn't void the warranty or anything. In fact, this is actually designed to do this. One thing you do want to keep in mind is when you're putting this back together, you kind of want to make sure that you're not pinching these wires. So as long as you're not pinching the wires, you should be good. And I'm not, so. It should just go on easily. Alright, and if you ever forget about what screws to put back on, well, you should be tracking it. But if you don't remember, just remember that you do have arrows on here. So you got an arrow here, you got an arrow here, and an arrow there. So just make sure when you are putting these back together that it is going back the correct way. So now I'm going to take this other screw here, do the same thing, back it out until I feel a click, and then screw it down. Once it stops, stop screwing it, and we're going to go ahead and cover that up. So now, at this point, we just take the back cover and put it back on. Line it up, and it literally just snaps together. Alright, got the screws back on. Alright, so after I plugged it in, the light came on up here, and I was able to turn the power on, and this is what happens. So basically it says default boot device missing or boot failed, insert media and hit any key. So yeah, basically there's nothing on here. So yeah, basically I'm gonna have to reflash this. But essentially that's how you change an SSD in a Steam Deck. So I'm gonna do that now, and that basically concludes this video. So that's it. Like always, have a good one.